Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab for today's workshop. If you have any questions along the way for our presenters, you can type them into the GoToWebinar chat box, likely found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any tech questions, you can type them there as well. We'll be sending out the recording materials from today's workshop by the end of day tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that email. And without further ado, I will now hand it over to you, David and Adam.
Right. Good morning. First, thank you to the Nonprofit Learning Lab for organizing this. David and I are extremely excited to get to talk to the team. Before we dive in though, real quick, last month I came across a news article from a nonprofit in North Carolina. Nonprofit was really cool. It spoke to me. They had been established to support adolescents that were experiencing homelessness or transitional housing. And through the years, they've kind of grown and taken on more responsibilities. And I mean, we're just an awesome pillar in the community. But the article last month wasn't about how great things were. The article was that they had to turn away 6 people from their food pantry because they ran out of food. And in that moment, that wasn't a leadership issue or a fundraising issue. It was really that their expenses had grown to the point where they couldn't keep control or couldn't keep delivering what they had promised. And so today, that's why Dave and I are talking to you today. It's not about how to fundraise more or how to write a better grant. It's really how to increase money for programs and services without relying on that grant, that event, or that campaign. David and I are with Schooley Mitchell. Schooley Mitchell has about 300 offices across North America. We work mostly with for-profits, but David and I's offices work almost exclusively with nonprofits. And the reason is because we have experience that leads us there. For me, my experience was I would have been one of those 6 people turned away. My mother dropped out of high school in 9th grade. She had 4 children and raised us on her own. We were homeless. We lived in tents. We slept on random floors where we could. Reaching poverty wasn't a threat for us. It was a goal. And as you guys are aware, the government is not really good at finding and caring for those people as best they can. And that's really where nonprofits come in and fill those holes. And so my goal working with nonprofits is to make sure you have not just enough resources, but enough visibility to help people like my mom kind of expedite not just getting to poverty, but getting through into the middle class. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Adam. It's good to be with all of you today. My journey to this work was also informed by my childhood, a little bit different than Adam, but I grew up in the so-called perfect family, 2 parents, private parochial school, opportunity, and I am the survivor of child abuse in my own home. I lived in terror and with such a sense of abandonment and no real self-worth that there were a lot of days where living just didn't seem worth it. But by the grace of God, literally, am I here today thriving. And what that experience taught me and gave me was this deep well of empathy. You know, sympathy is good. We get to feel good about feeling bad for someone or something and then move on. Empathy is this deep well of feeling someone's situation so strongly that you're compelled to do something. And I think that Adam and I share that. We share it with all of you. You get up every day to do this work. Despite all the challenges, you're still getting up to help others. And that's really what called me to this work. And that's why we're here today, is to help you have more resources to do the good work at such a critical time in our country and in our world.
So I'm going to have David just go over what we're going to talk about. The message that I want you to walk away from this morning is that we're not going to go through every line on these slides. This slide deck is really a toolkit for you. We won't get the opportunity to talk about everything, but there are questions in here that we want you to take back and ask your team to help you find that money that exists already in your budget. David, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So we're going to go through today revenue concerns. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that because you all live them every day, but want to touch on some of them. Then we're going to review cost containment concerns, again, with the idea of helping to open up minds and thoughts about how to convert money you already have into money for people, programs, services, without writing a grant, without hosting an event or managing a campaign. Third-party help. We know you already and your teams already have too much to do. There is help doing this work, and we're going to explain to you what that help is and the different forms that it comes in. We're going to share some examples of areas of savings to just give you an idea of how to think through this. We know that you already are, but more ideas and more deeply how to think through it. And then we want to leave you at the end of our session today with tangible things that you can take away tomorrow and do to help create more resources. And one of them, as Adam said, is this deck. We're not going to be able to go through every question, every thought that's prepared here today, but it's a roadmap for you to have conversations internally to build a culture around cost reduction, even more than what you have. And then conclusions and questions and answers at the end. So some revenue concerns. Again, you know these. Our current administration policies, grants evaporating overnight, coming back, going away, the kind of chaos that is your daily work. Diminishing donation bases and donor bases. Small donors are experiencing their own economic issues. There's a donor fatigue given how much demand there is out there. And then philanthropic overreach, where corporate and individual philanthropists are still willing to give, but increasingly there's a catch or some tactic or some strategy or something that they're insisting on that makes it challenging for each of you as leaders of your organization to execute your plans that you know best how to do.
And Dave and I recognize that revenue concerns are one of the things that keep you up at night. And my intent in this next slide is not to give you one more thing to be concerned about, but to kind of explain why cost containment deserves an equal seat at the table when it comes to that kind of thought process. So this is a basic chart for you, and I'll just explain how it's laid out. Every dollar is not created equally. And based on your program efficiency, each dollar you save is more valuable than just that dollar you save. So let's say your 85% program efficiency, which means 15% of your budget's going to overhead. Every dollar you save is the same as raising $1.18, right? So you start seeing the value of that dollar saved. If you expand that out to what if we saved $25,000, what would that be equivalent in a grant? And that's going to be equivalent to $28,000. And this is money that's going to repeat year over year without writing a grant. So we want you to start thinking that cost reduction is equivalent, if not a little bit greater than some of those opportunities to raise funds. This is a slide. This is something you can have whenever the presentation's over, but it's just an example of what does this mean to you. So to figure out what opportunity exists in your budget, what you would do is you would take your annual budget and multiply it by your percentage of overhead, and then multiply that by the savings opportunity. Now, I'll tell you the savings opportunity that David and I see is typically around a 25% reduction in overhead. And this is after all the work that your team's already done. This is by really taking a fine tip pencil to your work. One of the things this is not about cutting employees or cutting their benefits or cutting services that you need. This is about really looking at how do you get the best for what you're paying for and nothing more than that. So I'll leave this to you. This is an exercise that you can run with afterwards, just so you can understand what kind of opportunity exists for you if you focus on cost containment. So one of the reasons that organizations don't, or a multitude of reasons organizations don't focus on the cost containment, is internal issues. Whether that's they don't have the time, they don't have the knowledge of how to do it. We know that the staff is just a challenge, right? Trying to have enough staff to do your mission, plus try to have them focus on cost containment, challenging, and then knowing, are there tools available to help you? And if so, how do you access those? So that's everything on the internal side. Then you worry about what's going on in the economy. And that's, we see tariffs impacting folks. We see inflation. So you've got that. And then the third piece that kind of impacts that is the vendor has objectives. They have to generate revenue to generate profit. And so you're kind of competing with their goals. So when you focus all that in, usually that becomes so much that most folks will just kind of throw their hands in the air and say, I feel like we've got a good deal. Let's focus on getting another grant or running another capital campaign. But that's where a third party might be able to help you. And I'm sure that most of you are aware of the third party support that's out there. If you're new to your position, I just want to run through this so we all have a kind of basic understanding. So you have buying groups. And buying groups are essentially just taking organizations similar to yours and buying similar things to get a larger discount based on volume. You have cost reduction consulting. So that's where Schooley Mitchell is. We do the consulting on that. And I'll introduce another one next slide, brokers. But the best fit for you depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It doesn't always mean that a consultant's going to be best or a GPO is the best. You've got to think about what are you trying to achieve. And even, let's say you say a consultant's the best. Well, there's different layers of consultants. There's a consultant that charges a flat fee, or one that charges based on estimated savings, or one that charges based on realized savings. There's quite a few things to consider when you're looking at what kind of third party there is to help me. So all of those, between a GPO, a broker, and a cost reduction consultant, they all generate cost savings for you. They're all going to bring you marketplace knowledge, and they're going to help you streamline your procurement and manage your contracts. But where they differ is a GPO is really if you have a low spend threshold, that on your own, you're not going to be able to get any sort of volume discount. A GPO has a relationship with a vendor, which means that they're bringing more organizations to that vendor, and you're getting a discount off of the vendor's normal rate. This is if you have very straightforward needs. I need 250 paper plates a month. This is what I'll be able to get it for from them. It's a very, very low time investment to use a GPO. It's a very easy process for you. Next up, you would move to a broker. And a broker's for that low to mid spend. You have telecom, you have electricity, things like that. They work for the vendor. And I say that not so much as they're an employee of the vendor, but they are paid by the vendor. So they have a certain portfolio of vendors that they can bring you to, and they'll try to match you up with the best one in their portfolio. Again, this is if you have straightforward needs and it's a low time investment for the nonprofit. Then you have a consultant. A consultant is more for that mid to high level spend. And that's all based on a expense category. Some you might think is low, which is high. Some you might think is high is actually pretty low. They're vendor agnostic. They work for you, so they look at the entire marketplace. And they are good if you have unique needs. And I would define unique needs as if you have multiple locations spread throughout different areas, or if you think about the audits that you have done every year on your finances. If you've never had an audit done on a specific expense, then that would be a unique need, something that someone could come in and clear up. Consultants, though, you would need more of a time investment because they're trying to cater a solution directly to you, not to a larger bucket. So understanding that helps you kind of gauge and understand which one you should reach out to for support. David, do you want to talk about some of the common areas for savings?
Sure. Remembering that we're not talking about slashing jobs or programs or services that you need. Opportunities to look at are waste, telecom, supplies, which is a very broad category we'll talk a little bit more about, credit card processing for services that you might be offering and charging for, or for your donations, SaaS or software as a service, not only the software you're using for your own operations, potentially like Microsoft or Google or Adobe, but if you have career placement or job advancement or training programs, those licenses that you need to serve your clients. Small package shipping is an area we see with nonprofits that have social enterprises or potentially e-commerce. So FedEx, UPS, fuel for fleets or vans or vehicles, and then employee benefits. Ways to cut costs, not people. Attract and retain talent. These are just some of the areas to have on your radar screen to think about being able to move money from vendor bills to services and programs.
All right, so come up to our first poll.
What's the maximum percent increase that waste companies can write into auto-renewing contracts? 5, 10, 20, there is no limit. Auto renewals will renew at the current rate. Okay. Can you pull up the answers for us?
Yes, sorry, people are still loading their answers, so I wanted to
Okay,
give them
sorry.
time. All good. We have about 42% of participants voted so far. I'll probably give it another 10 seconds.
I'm glad it wasn't me. Thank you.
Oh no, you're all good. Okay, I will share this now.
That's an interesting spread. The truth is, there is no limit. If you auto renew without being able to review your agreement, vendors can add whatever rate increases, fee increases, or term changes that they want to. And we're going to talk about that some more as we move forward. So let's talk a bit about waste. Trash, recycling, depending on your operations, compost, grease traps, everything that you have to get rid of and are paying for. There's a couple of slides here to walk you through all the different considerations, but let's focus on two that are important. One is overage charges and the other is renewals, the auto renewal. Overages are things that happen when well-meaning volunteers or staff take a bag of trash out and throw it next to the dumpster or on top. That is an overage. Even if your bin was not full, if trash is not inside and the lid is not down, you're going to pay an overage. And the overage can be $150 or more per incident. That's money that is going to a waste vendor rather than to programs and services. And again, the auto renewal. It seems really convenient, and it is convenient for your vendor because it's carte blanche for them to add whatever they want into the agreement without you having looked. And so here is an important thing to remember. We're not saying stop working with the vendors that you like or that you have had a good experience with, but in your agreement, there will be a clause that creates a window of opportunity for you to notify the vendor that you want to turn off auto renewal. Again, it doesn't mean you're going to stop working with them. It just means you're not giving them the ability to put whatever increase and whatever fees and whatever rate term changes into the agreement. So you need to look at this agreement, your agreements, and you need to go in and within that window, here it's 90 to 180, to send a letter to the vendor telling them you want to turn off auto renewal.
All right, so next poll. Did you know many nonprofits qualify for government or cooperative telecom pricing? Yes, and we use it. We qualify but haven't checked recently. No, but that's good to know. Yes, but we'd overpay because we wouldn't use all the services. Or I thought that was just for schools or cities. Let's see where that shakes out.
Votes are still trickling in. I'll probably give it another full minute if that's okay with y'all.
Yep, no, that's okay. Yeah, and you may hear of the government or cooperative pricing, NASPO, or something along those lines might be a familiar term for you if you're not quite familiar with it. All right, so let's see, 72% no, but that's good to know. That's really interesting. Let's see, 17% yes, and we use it. 3% we qualify but haven't checked recently, and I thought that was just for schools or cities. What's interesting is yes, but we'd overpay because we wouldn't use all the services is 0. It's very interesting that that got no responses because that's actually what we find frequently. So when we look at telecom services, what we typically do is we'll look at plans versus usage, and we'll find that they're not in relation to one another. And that's where a lot of the cooperative pricing ends up hurting folks, is because if you were to utilize that service on the open market versus that price, it's a good deal. But when you compare what you're paying for versus what you're using, you're typically overpaying. And I'll show you an example. In the telecom world, usually what gets looked at is the front copy of the bill. How much do we owe? What actually needs to be looked at is inside of there, line by line, what are you using and what are you paying for? So it'll highlight your invoices, will say, this is what you're paying for, this is what you've used. So this is an example of a client that had an unlimited plan, unlimited messaging, unlimited data, but they're using very little of it. So when you see something like that, you want to think, well, does it make sense for them to be on an unlimited plan, or should I put them into a shared or pooled plan with another phone? That way we can reduce those costs further. Additionally, I see insurance on here. Insurance is one of the best money makers for a telecom company. The reason is you're going to pay your monthly premium. Then when you file a claim, you'll pay a deductible, and the phone you get is not a new phone, it's a refurbished phone. And so there are much better ways to make sure that you have a phone if your one breaks than to utilize the insurance, and you can do it absolutely free. So there's opportunities there. You don't have to worry about insurance. And then we see auto pay. And in this one, the telecom companies will give you $5 per line if you utilize auto pay and paperless billing. The reason they do that is not because it costs them $5 to send you out a bill. They do it because they're conditioning you not to review any of this. And if you don't review it, you won't question it, and you'll continue to overpay for those services. I'm not saying to get rid of it. I think the $5 is a great discount. You just need to put a process in place to make sure that you review the bills every month before you pay the bill. The other thing that we find frequently, duplication of services. A lot of telecom closets, there will be wires everywhere. The best way to see if you're duplicating services is not by going there, but by looking at invoices for similar locations to see, are you paying for the same thing? I would say about 50% of the time we'll find that our customers or our clients are paying for the same thing at the same location from 2 different vendors. And so it's an easy way to clean things up. And then there are phone lines that you pay for every month that you may not think about, and you want to see those invoices because they can get very expensive very quickly, and there's cheaper alternatives. So if you have an elevator, you want to look at what's that phone line costing you. The intercom systems, fax machines are getting expensive. You can move to an e-fax for a much cheaper cost. credit card processing machines, if you have a mailer, or your fire alarm or alarm systems. Those are all going to have phone lines. You want to see how much they are and where you can get them a little bit cheaper to manage those.
So when was the last time you asked a vendor who was also a donor for a rate reduction? In the last 6 months, last year, when they became a donor? Never. Are you crazy? That'd be awkward and risk the relationship.
David, which one do you think is going to take the lead on this?
I'm voting for Are You Crazy?
Okay, all right.
And I was wrong. Never. Okay. So 33% have asked, well, 36 with when they became a donor, and 55 never. Okay. So let's look at supplies. And there are about 3 pages here of different items to consider, different questions. Again, use this as a roadmap for a conversation with your team to talk about. And supplies is an area where it's not just a finance decision. You may have facilities, operations, other people involved. But just to key in on 2 that are listed here, process. Do you have a process around ordering? And I know that seems like a dumb question, and you're probably thinking, well, of course we do. But recently, with a college with 5 campuses, the CFO wasn't really sure. And the truth is, there wasn't a process, and every department could order what they want when they needed to. And in the process of working with them, we found $15,000 a year on just 6 SKUs by creating a more consolidated process for the organization. And that other question that was just answered about asking your donors, we understand, we know how difficult it is to get and keep donors. And we are not suggesting harming relationships in any way. But if your donor really believes in your mission and they really want to help you succeed, to have you help people, then they should be willing to have an honest conversation about whether or not you're on the right rate structure. You're paying as low as you can. If you were able to buy at tier levels, could you save more? Do you need to start buying on demand? They can be a partner, not just a donor. And having that conversation honestly is not a threat to a relationship. It's demonstrating that you're being a good steward with your resources and that you're wanting to move every penny and nickel you can to programs and services and people. So don't be afraid of those conversations.
All right, next question. This one's going to be interesting to see where the answers shake out. But across all the major card brands, how many different interchange rates exist? About 150, 327, close to 500, more than 680, and you lost me at interchange rate. All right, David, what's your take on this one?
Oh, for sure, the last one.
I'm not going to give away an answer, but I would guess it's a very specific number that people will select. Okay, you lost me at interchange rate. I was wrong. We tried throwing you off with
We hear you. We understand.
So interchange rate significantly impacts how much you pay in credit card processing fees. There are more than 680 of them. They change twice a year. And what I want to do is I want to show you some things that you should understand about credit card processing that can impact how much you pay, in return, how much you can reduce that cost. So when we talk to most nonprofits, they're accepting credit cards for two reasons, either for their donors or for their social enterprise. For this instance, we're just going to talk about donor because it's a little bit easier to get your arms around. Most folks think that their donor platform is the one that processes the credit card payments, and that is not the case. Typically, there is a platform behind that that does it. The reason that I want you to understand this, so we'll take Blackbaud, for example. They use WorldPay, or QGive uses WorldPay. Bloomerang uses Stripe. It's important to know that because you should see two different invoices. You should see one from Blackbaud and then something from WorldPay. Blackbaud may condense them all, but if you don't see credit card transactions and a lot of different fees associated to it, then you should be requesting an invoice from WorldPay, because that's where all the fees are hidden, and you want to figure that out. These are just questions you ask. So let's talk about the interchange rates so you can understand them. This is a very, very simplified transaction map. If a donor gives you $100, you're going to end up keeping $96 of it, roughly. The way this works is they give you $100 using their credit card. The first fee you'll pay is the interchange fee. The interchange fee is set up by the credit card companies and goes to the bank that issued the credit card. And so it might be a Chase Visa. Chase will get that money. It's 680 different rates, and they change twice a year. And what impacts that rate is who issued the card, what type of credit card is it, what kind of points are available, how did you accept that card? Did you swipe it? Did you use the chip? Did you type it in? All those impact it, but that money goes over to the bank. The next fee you pay is going to be the card network fee. This is also set by the credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, but they get to keep that piece of it. The final rate is the processing fee, and that goes to the payment processor. So when you're trying to reduce your merchant processing costs, you can't do anything about the interchange fees. No matter who you go with, the interchange fee will be the same. You can't change the card network fee. It's always going to be the same. Where you want to focus is on the payment processor, and that's why it's important to see that invoice so you can see how much they're charging you, and you can reach out and ask for that reduction. Couple of things to consider and questions to ask. One of the big ones, PCI compliance. So PCI compliance just tells the credit card companies that you are protecting the information from those you accept credit cards from. On your bill, you will see if you are not compliant, it'll say PCI non-compliance fee or non-PCI compliance. And they'll charge you anywhere from $29 a month to $99 a month for each account that you have. And they're not going to call you and tell you you're not compliant. They're just happy to take your money. So you want to look to see what that is, call your vendor and say, how do I take care of this? How do I become compliant to get rid of that fee? But that's a super easy way that they'll just take money from you.
One other quick point before we go to this poll. Many of you may give your donors the option to pay for fees. So you might have an option during checkout for 1.7 or 2.5%. The assumption there is that your donor is paying all of the credit card processing fees, so all their money is going to your mission. But is it? Do you know that it's really just 1.7 or 2.5? Because most of the time, the total amount of those rates and fees are 4% or more. So understanding through the information that Adam just explained, what you're really being charged for credit card processing is important. Okay, what best describes your approach to reviewing expenses like telecom waste supplies that we're talking about? We don't spend enough in these areas to make it a priority. We focus more on high cost areas like payroll and benefits. We've looked at them in the past and felt they're okay. We'd review them more often if it didn't take so much time, or it's more important to focus on revenue generation and grants.
This is a tough poll question, David.
Well, we're only allowed 5 answers by the system because we had all of the above in there, I think.
All right.
Interesting. Okay, pretty split.
Pretty split, yeah.
So what we're trying to talk about here is essentially from overhead to impact. Every dollar you spend is going to one of two things. It's going to people, programs, services, saving jobs, your mission, or it's supporting your vendor's margin. What we often find is that, as Adam explained in the case of telecom, you're in a package where you're paying for features and benefits that you don't need. You're locked into outdated rates from years ago because you've been auto-renewing because it's so convenient for years, experiencing increases that you don't have control of because you're letting them just happen. You're being overcharged because no one has the time to go through the bills in detail. And billing errors, rate creep, incorrect agreement terms are being missed, not because it's anybody's fault, but simply because there isn't enough time to review every line of every invoice every month. And without that, mistakes are happening and overcharges are occurring. So what we're trying to convey today, what we want to help you with, is how do we move dimes from waste into dollars for people? How do we create funds, again, that you already have? You're not having to write a grant, host a campaign, manage an event, go to anybody. This is money you already have that can be redeployed to people, programs, and services and your mission by reducing costs. We want you to think about refocusing your budget. And we want you to know you do not have to reinvent the wheel. You do not have to do this by yourself. As Adam explained, there are groups, different groups and organizations that can help you with this.
So we kind of kicked this off talking about a newspaper article that said, the organization just couldn't feed enough people. I want to show you some examples because I know in the poll, one of the responses, we just don't spend enough in this area. These areas are rife with opportunity to save money. So here's one: nonprofit feeds more people. Uncovered $150,000 in waste management savings. They can add 60,000 more meals. No impact to their budget. From dumpster to drama, again, reduced almost 68%, and now they can expand artistic program for local children. Hospital gets ahead of Big Beautiful Bill. They uncovered over $1.5 million a year in savings to help offset some of the lower Medicaid reimbursement. Corrected billing error feeds more family. This is a billing error on utilities. They can feed an additional family of 3 every month. $33,000 in supplies costs reduced. This allows them to renovate 4 additional children's bedrooms each year. Because again, this money is money that you'll save year over year. You can build that into your budget now. This is what we want to see: 250 more people served. Nonprofit Midwest uncovered $72,000 per year in telecom expenses. Opportunities exist, and we're trying you to think that this opportunity is not just a one and done. This is going to be year over year, that once you clean this up and you have that savings will continue every year for you.
So what can you do tomorrow? What can you take with you from this that's tangible and real? First, this deck. This is a roadmap for you to have conversations internally with some specific questions by category about how you could look at expenses differently. Turn off auto renewals, please. Do not allow your vendors to control you add expense category with rates, with fees, and with terms. Turn it off and renew agreements. PCI compliance, as Adam shared with you, is an easy, you can do it yourself. There's instructions, you can get on the phone and be compliant that day. Mobile phone insurance, as reasonable and logical as it seems, particularly for organizations with high usage or potential damage, is just a black hole that you're throwing money into without any real return on it. So you don't have to compromise having the right equipment when you need it, but insurance is not the answer. Staff and volunteer training, inform people about what can be recycled and what can't. Don't pay contamination fees. Don't pay overages for bags on top of the waste bins or next to it. Unused wireline and wireless services. Look at those usages as Adam shared with you on the bill. See if you're using or not using services. See if you have wireless devices for people that aren't at the organization anymore that could be redeployed to somebody new, or if you just need to cancel the line and save that money. And are you paying sales tax? If you're in a state that allows you to exempt from sales tax, check the invoice. Don't depend on the vendor or assume that they know you shouldn't be paying just because you're a nonprofit. Make sure your documents are filed and you're checking your invoices. There are thousands of dollars that we recover in simply having people get their documents submitted and not paying sales tax because it's on the invoice every month and nobody's seeing it. So we're over, sorry, but quickly, vendors are actively seeking ways to take your money. That's not because they're bad people necessarily, it's because they're for-profit businesses. It's up to you to protect your mission. And it is up to you to set a culture within the organization that cost reduction is equally valued to revenue generation. And as Adam showed you, you can see the magnitude of good that can do. And then there are resources. There are organizations that can help you with this. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. You do not have to do this by yourself. You have to prioritize it. And even if you have initiatives internally, as Adam shared, 80% of the time when we're working with a client, we find more than 25% savings on top of internal initiatives. Not because anybody did anything wrong, just because your resources will have more ability and more information to bring to bear for you. Thank you.
So we made it, David. So we will open it up now for anyone that has any questions, or if we can shed more light on anything.
Yep. The first question that we had come in is, what does GPO stand for?
Yep, Group Purchasing Organization. So they will get all of the different organizations together and kind of put them into one group and make the purchases together to get a volume discount.
Perfect. And then how do you feel about service or maintenance contracts?
I suppose it would depend on the context of it.
If there's an obligation in an agreement to maintain a service agreement or something like that, then it's good, potentially. Yeah. You don't want to violate an agreement or violate some terms by not having it, but they are negotiable. Mm-hmm. Do not accept what's on somebody's agreement simply because there's a bunch of fine print and it's what everybody signs. Ask questions, challenge it, negotiate, or get somebody to do that for you because you don't have the time and you may not be comfortable doing that. So get somebody who's skilled and good at doing this and negotiate your terms. We have negotiated terms with multinational waste companies that everybody thinks they just have to sign the agreement. But we have changed performance agreements. We've gotten rid of our renewals. We've made fees be fixed rather than variable. So don't be afraid to challenge what's in fine print, including maintenance agreements.
Mhm.
Awesome. That was our last question, and we are over, so I'm gonna not ask for more. But I was totally fine with you guys going over because I think this is fantastic information that everyone should.
Can we take 1 second while you turn it off and just ask everybody that's still with us, if you hadn't have to jump off already? We know that this work is hard. We know you're not paid enough. We know you don't have enough resources. We know you don't hear thank you enough. But because of Adam's and my lived experiences, we know how important this work is. And we are deeply grateful for the courage, the tenacity, the commitment that each of you make every day to serving your missions. And from both of us, please hear our deep gratitude and our thank you to all of you.
David and I we're eternally grateful, but the day-to-day decisions that you make don't just impact the people that you're serving, but 40 years later, you're impacting people still. So thank you. We hope in the midst of the chaos that you take a moment to reflect on all the good that you do, and that you share that with your team, because it is incredible.
This was very sweet. Thank you, David and Adam. Everyone, this workshop has now come to a close. If you're interested in receiving the recording materials from today's workshop, you can download them on the bottom of our free webinar page or email us at program@nonprofitlearninglab.org. Thank you so much for participating. And again, thank you, David and Adam, for educating our community.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Bye, everyone.